Did you know that while Michael Jackson was moonwalking his way to global superstardom, his older brother Jermaine was quietly walking toward a completely different path that would change everything? You'll never believe what happened when this Grammy-nominated Jackson 5 member took a simple trip to the Middle East in 1989. Breaking. What Jermaine discovered there was so life-altering that he abandoned his birth name, transformed his entire worldview, and became Mohammed Abdul Aziz Sharif. But what really happened during those pivotal weeks in Bahrain that made a Jackson brother choose faith over fame? The Jackson brothers' story began in the modest steel town of Gary, Indiana, where poverty and dreams collided in a small family home. Jermaine Jackson, born December 11, 1954, was thrust into the spotlight as the original bass guitarist and co-lead vocalist of the Jackson 5. While his younger brother Michael captured hearts with his extraordinary vocals, Jermaine provided the steady rhythmic foundation that made their sound legendary. But beneath the glittering surface of Motown success, a spiritual void was growing. But what was missing from this life of luxury and adoration that even Grammy nominations couldn't fill? By the late 1980s, Jermaine had established himself as a formidable solo artist, earning a Grammy nomination for Best Male R&B Vocal Performance for his 1979 album Let's Get Serious. His hits dominated charts worldwide throughout the 1970s and 1980s. Yet, success couldn't answer the profound questions burning within him. Raised as a Jehovah's Witness alongside his famous siblings, Jermaine found himself increasingly unable to reconcile his spiritual needs with his childhood faith. The contradictions between religious teachings and the realities he witnessed in the entertainment industry created a crisis of faith that threatened to consume him. But what would it take to find the answers he desperately sought? In 1989, at the height of his solo career, Jermaine made a decision that would transform his life forever. He embarked on a tour of Middle Eastern countries with his oldest sister, seeking something he couldn't quite name. This wasn't just another celebrity vacation or promotional tour. This was a spiritual expedition into the heart of Islamic civilization. The brother who had spent decades entertaining Western audiences was about to encounter a culture that would challenge every assumption he held about faith, family, and purpose. But what he discovered in Bahrain would exceed his wildest expectations. The moment that transformed Jermaine Jackson's life wasn't found in a grand mosque or through scholarly debate. It came from watching children. In Bahrain, he witnessed something that Hollywood's brightest lights had never shown him: pure, uncomplicated devotion to God. Local children displayed a level of spiritual dedication and moral clarity that left the seasoned performers speechless. Their prayers weren't performances. Their faith wasn't a Sunday obligation. Their relationship with Allah was as natural as breathing. These young Muslims possessed a serenity and purpose that all of Jermaine's success had never provided him. But how could children teach a Grammy-nominated superstar about life's deepest truths? Having embraced Islam, I felt as if I were born again, Jermaine later revealed. I found in Islam the answers to those queries which I had failed to find in Christianity. For someone raised in the Jehovah's Witness tradition, this wasn't a casual theological switch, it was a complete spiritual revolution. Islam's clear teachings about the unity of God, the brotherhood of mankind, and the balance between spiritual and worldly life resonated with everything Jermaine had been searching for. The religion that had guided civilizations for over 14 centuries suddenly made perfect sense to a man who had spent his life entertaining the world. But what specific aspects of Islamic teaching spoke so powerfully to his soul? When Jermaine formally converted to Islam in 1989, he didn't just change his religious affiliation, he transformed his entire identity. Taking the name Mohammed Abdul Aziz Sharif, meaning praiseworthy servant of the Exalted One and honored leader, he signaled his complete commitment to his new faith. This wasn't a publicity stunt or career move. This was a soul's declaration of surrender to Allah. The man who had once sought validation through chart positions and Grammy nominations now found his worth in servitude to the Creator. His luxurious palace on the outskirts of Los Angeles became not just a home, but a center for Islamic learning and cultural bridge building. But how did his famous family react to this dramatic transformation? Jermaine's conversion occurred during a particularly challenging time for Muslims in America. The late 1980s and early 1990s saw rising tensions and misconceptions about Islam in Western media. Rather than hide his faith, Jermaine chose to become one of Islam's most visible advocates in the entertainment industry. He used his celebrity platform to educate Americans about Islamic values, appearing in interviews and writing articles that bridged the gap between Eastern and Western understanding. His approach wasn't confrontational but educational, showing by example that Islam enhanced rather than diminished one's character and contributions to society. But what personal costs did this public stance demand? Perhaps the most intriguing aspect of Jermaine's conversion was its potential influence on his legendary brother Michael. In exclusive interviews years later, Jermaine revealed that Michael had been deeply interested in Islamic teachings and was on the verge of converting to Islam before his death in 2009. The King of Pop had witnessed his brother's transformation and found himself drawn to the peace and purpose that Islam had brought to Jermaine's life. Late-night conversations between the brothers often centered on spiritual themes, with Michael asking probing questions about Islamic beliefs and practices. But what prevented the world's most famous entertainer from taking that final step toward Islam? Muhammad Abdul Aziz Sharif didn't abandon his artistic gifts after conversion. He redirected them toward a higher purpose. His Los Angeles palace became a meeting place where Islamic scholars, entertainment industry figures, and curious seekers could engage in meaningful dialogue. He organized cultural events that showcased the beauty of Islamic art, music, and philosophy to Western audiences who had never been exposed to authentic Islamic culture. Through his work, countless Americans gained their first positive impression of Islam, seeing it not as a foreign threat but as a noble spiritual tradition. But how did this cultural ambassadorship change his relationship with his former life in entertainment? Converting to Islam cost Jermaine Jackson more than just his birth name. In an industry where image often matters more than substance, his open embrace of Islamic values sometimes conflicted with entertainment industry expectations. He had to navigate the complex relationship between his faith's teachings about modesty, family values, and spiritual priorities while maintaining his career in secular music. Some business relationships strained, some opportunities disappeared, some old friends kept their distance. Yet, for every door that closed, Jermaine found that his faith opened others that led to deeper fulfillment and authentic relationships. But was the trade worth everything he gained? Today, Muhammad Abdul Aziz Sharif continues to embody the transformation that authentic faith can bring to a human life. His journey from the Jackson 5's bass player to Islam's ambassador in Hollywood demonstrates that spiritual truth transcends cultural boundaries, economic status, and family traditions. His conversion wasn't motivated by crisis, scandal, or desperation. It was the natural result of a sincere seeker encountering divine truth. Through his example, millions have learned that Islam isn't opposed to success, creativity, or joy, but rather provides the framework within which these blessings can be properly understood and appreciated. But what does his continuing journey teach us about faith, family, and finding our true purpose? Jermaine Jackson's conversion to Islam represents more than one man's spiritual journey. It symbolizes the universal human quest for meaning, truth, and connection with the divine. His story proves that authentic faith can flourish in any environment, that spiritual truth transcends cultural barriers, and that the courage to follow one's conscience can lead to unimaginable blessings. From the stages of Motown to the prayer rugs of Islam, his path demonstrates that the most important transformations happen not in our careers or bank accounts, but in our hearts and souls. His legacy continues to inspire seekers from every background who recognize that true success isn't measured in Grammy nominations or gold records, but in the peace that comes from surrendering to Allah's will. Through his journey, the world learned that sometimes the greatest performances happen not on stage, but in the quiet moments when we choose to follow truth wherever it leads us.